Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Kia ora, Chewy. How are you, love?
Kia ora, Pat. I just want to address the elephant in the room. There's a lot of people expecting me to be very heated tonight. I've ruminated on this and I've decided to be calm. And as zen as a Hindu cow, won't get a rise out of me. It'll
Will
be
this help
fine.
you be zen?
Yeah,
Does this help?
exactly that.
Does this feel
I'm
good,
just
the
thinking
music?
of the
in the
smooth
background?
yaz
Because
in my effort. Yeah, it's good.
What I'm actually
good, I'm
doing is testing that the system's working because we didn't do
Oh,
it
I
before
know
we
what
started.
you're doing.
Yeah, okay,
You're
so
not
it's
going to
over here.
get to me, Pat.
Very good.
You're
Very
not
good,
going to
very
get to me.
good. How are you, ma'am?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
I tell you what, I've got a palette cleanser that we can
Before
use.
we start.
Well, we can use it numerous
Yep,
times during the
news
night.
views.
And once I remember to share my screen, and actually from the looks of things, then actually get all the tabs set up down the bottom, because I don't think we can share the screen right now, I shall show you what it is. So why don't you fill for 15 seconds while we set this thing up, Joey, and then we'll come back. How's your weekend?
Okay.
Oh, hey,
my
Matariki this week?
It is
Exciting.
Matariki on Friday.
All right,
So that'll be good. Everybody gets a wee bit of a holiday, and I'm sure lots of places are having Matariki themed community events that you should definitely get out to. It is also 7 days. 7 days you have left to submit
Right.
to the standards bill.
We've got some stuff to talk about Matariki this week. I've already told you, Chewy, we're dropping a hangi on Friday. Well, that's a bit arrogant. I'm going. Oh, is it? I thought I told you on Saturday. Yeah. Anyway,
I may not have been listening. I
am going to a place that's dropping a hangi. It sounds really arrogant to say we're dropping a hangi. I've been invited to go along, so you should come. Okay, I've now got the system sorted out, and this is the palette cleanser that we can use at any stage today. You ready? Ready?
Oh. That's pretty good.
That's Central Otago.
Where's this from?
Central Otago this afternoon. My 18-year-old is going on a hike with her boyfriend, and she sent me that photo.
Nice.
So she took that. Look, above the clouds and everything. Yeah,
That's pretty magic.
That's pretty magic. Just
That's
the old
pretty
iPhone
good.
too. Nothing special about that one. Just the old iPhone, and off she goes. Do we feel good? Can we talk about Ruth Richardson yet?
Calming. Lovely, clean, cold air in my lungs. Everything's
Hey,
good.
I talked about Matariki. What I thought we'd do for Matariki. I thought we should do something with our buffer gear, and go, what can we do with our buffer gear for Matariki? But I've made a bit of a decision. All the blacks and whites and color and most of those colors are back in stock now. Okay, here is the deal. All this week, so it basically means from right now through till midnight Friday, you can get a hoodie, and then using the code Matariki, get a t-shirt for half price.
Nice.
And I was going to say, let's just do it with our Tino Rangatiratanga buffer gear, but I thought, nah, it's holiday time. Any hoodie, you get a t-shirt for half price. So that's about a $30 value back to you guys. Because we want to sell it. It's our Matariki Day sale. Any hoodie, t-shirt, using the code, look, it all says it up here if you get confused, using the code Matariki. Just use the discount code Matariki at the checkout to get your BHNT for half price with any hoodie purchased. Hubba huge. So I thought we should get that out there for Matariki. And speaking of other things we often talk about, I've got a bunch of new patrons and stuff to thank, but we've got a guest today. So often when we have a guest on a Monday, might put that off till Tuesday. So you lovely people who have either changed your levels or have joined us in our lovely world of BHN, we'll give you big shout outs tomorrow morning. But remember that bhnshop.nz all this week. If you've been sitting around waiting to get some gear, there's sizes and especially there was a bunch of blacks that were sold out. So there's a bunch of those back in place. I know some people were waiting for them. Any hoodie, you get a t-shirt half price. bhnshop.nz. How dope is that? How dope is that?
That is pretty dope.
That is both dope and fly. Both dope and indeed fly. We are tonight going to have a look at the most hilarious story probably of the year. And that is old mate Donald Trump's parade versus the No Kings.
Oh.
The No King. I know. It's delightful. Pat. It is just a good news story.
You know I watched that.
Oh, of course.
You know I watched.
So we've got a bunch of that about Russia. I mean, we're going to talk a bit at Russia tonight because we've got a clip from Jacinda, and not to bury the lead. Is it still called the bury the lead when you give? No, bury the lead is not talking about it, so it's the opposite of that. It's not keeping my powder dry. New Zealand had 30% more disinformation at the end of the second Auckland lockdown, Russian disinformation, than any other country. Mm-hmm. And you wonder why we had that falling over in Wellington and stuff. So Jacinda's been all over the place the last couple of weeks. She wouldn't come and talk to us. We did try. She used to be on my radio show every week, and now she won't give me the time of day. And so we're going to have a look at Pods. I think it's Pod Save America that she was on. It's a really good interview and some very interesting things said on there as well. And also, Ruth Richardson on Q&A. Just, yeah. Well, what did she say? I've tweeted it already. She said, she made a claim that you can buy more things with less money. She actually made that claim. You can buy more things with less money. Because she went something like, and we'll get the quote at the place. She said something like, because people think the more money you spend, the more you get. In fact, it's the exact opposite. So that means the less money you spend, the more things you get. It was really bizarre. Really bizarre. And just looks like a total lobbyist shill now. You know, Jack asked some really interesting questions and it was all just talking points and bumper stickers, and it was really weird. It was really weird. I didn't like it, Chewy. I didn't like it at all.
I just want to check. I don't like checking in to see what clips that you've got, but I must admit I didn't make it all the way through the Q&A on Sunday. Yeah. I assume, and hopefully you'll confirm it for me, that by the end of the interview she was led off in chains.
No. What happened is she looked directly into Jack's eyes, and then her face melted like on the end of Indiana Jones.
That would be. I would accept.
But then she was born again. She was risen from the ashes. That's what happens to her every morning.
Oh no!
Every morning.
I was going to accept either one of those options as being the only acceptable ones.
I just feel like there is this way of saying her name now, and I can't get past not saying Ruth fucking Richardson. It just feels the correct way to pronounce her name now. It's so weird. It was such a weird conversation. Just an absolute, just talking about, and we were off in Canada skiing just while we're talking. Yeah. While Jack does a beautiful job about how much poverty there is today that can be tracked directly back to the mother of all budgets.
I was just going to say, you can tell when she was finance minister by looking at our deprivation stats. And the thing this is why I get so heated about her. We have never been able to recover from the damage that she did. She set a new normal of what New Zealand would expect and how we treat the less fortunate that we have never been able to stuff back in the bag.
I mean,
nobody's been able to do it.
I'll give you one thing though. She does look okay for 175 years old. All right. Let us have a chat about this very, very strange. What I'm actually going to put it out there as an orchestrated story today, and I'll give you my evidence shortly about what's happening with National. Just mulling over the idea of cutting sick days in half. So the workplace spokesperson for Labour is Jan Tinetti, and she joins us right now. Kia ora, Jan, and welcome.
Kia ora. Great being here again.
Do you want to swear at Ruth Richardson? You could say some bad words if you want. Up to you. You don't have to. But I'm just saying.
I won't. I'll
No?
just keep it internalized.
Okay. That's bad. That turns into a cancerous growth if you keep that internalized.
Yeah, you are in a safe place.
Because we were speaking of Ruth Richardson, speaking of cancerous growths. Now, a very strange story today. Now, I'll explain why it's very strange. Jan, bear with us, because we're going to play a little bit of footage here, okay, and play a little bit of audio. None of the clips are very long, but I just want to put this out there, how strange this all is. It goes like this, okay? Mr. Luxon, Prime Minister Luxon, was on Newstalk ZB at 7:37 this morning. And just off the cuff, for no apparent reason whatsoever, Mike Hosking talked about sick days. Just a random throwaway topic subject.
But other thing was, my tech guy was round at my house on Friday fixing some stuff.
And restart, Mike.
And
Blue screen of death, was it?
And he said to me, why do we still have 10 days sick leave? And I thought, that's quite a good question.
Yeah.
Why do we have 10
What a
days sick leave?
natural thing to bring up.
Yeah, and actually, when I said this, when I said this was 7:37, this is 9 minutes into it. So technically, this is 7:46. That's important because the RNZ conversation starts at 7:47. So this is 60 seconds before the RNZ story, where Mike Hosking, for some reason, just casually throws out from no apparent place questions about sick leave.
And he said to me, why do we still have 10 days sick leave? And I thought, that's quite a good question.
Yeah.
Why do we have 10 days sick leave?
Yeah, well, there's some changes coming through on workplace relations, which Brooke is
here we
leading
go.
through.
So we had 5 sick days until Jacinda decided we needed 10.
Colour me surprised, says Michael Hosking. Not like I've been set up with this at any stage.
Correct.
For COVID. COVID's now, can we agree that it's gone?
Yes.
And
It's just
therefore we
normal
might need to do
practice.
something about sick leave.
We might need to. We might need to do things about pro-ratering sick leave as well, because people who are on part-time contracts are getting full-time 10-day equivalency. So Brooke van Velden's working through some of those issues.
When are we getting an announcement on that?
I can you do this to me every frickin' week.
I'm sorry to hold you to account. My sincere apologies. I just thought,
The amount of laughter is the way you know he's holding him to account from the jovial nature of the conversation.
you were running the place.
There will be. I just can't remember the date off the top of my head.
So
on
an
that one.
announcement
but I know we've
on
discussed it.
sick leave is coming from Brooke van Velden.
There was a whole bunch of workplace relations stuff, as you've started to see. There's also stuff on health and safety, and in the mix in there is sick leave and stuff.
So they started this clip with Mike Hosking saying it's 23 minutes away from 8. So that means right now it's been 10 minutes so far. That means it's now 47, so it's 13 minutes away. Ironically, he obviously walked straight out of the studio, straight into this conversation, because this conversation started, according to their website, at 7:47 a.m. And again, at the end of this conversation, there was just this random question at it.
Just setting aside the troubles of the world for a moment, sick leave. Are you proposing or moving to reduce the number of sick days from 10 to 5?
Look, that's something that I know Brooke van Velden is looking into as she looks at a whole raft of workplace relations. So it's a bit premature for now. But
would you support that?
Well, I think there's probably a need for us to look at it for sure, and just make sure that we've got that setting right, and particularly around proportionate sick leave for part-time workers versus full-time workers and those sorts of things. But, Brooke's looking at a package of things around workplace relations, as you've seen through already this year, and she'll continue to look at that.
So it seems pretty clear that this morning, the 2 biggest radio breakfast shows in the country, probably the 2 biggest media shows, probably bigger than TVNZ breakfast, I would think, but a random question about sick leave followed by a prodding question. Now, the RNZ question could have come off the back of someone hearing it on ZB and going, you should ask him about this. So there might be some logic there. And then they played this dance all day, which has ended up with us getting this on One News.
There are no plans to halve sick leave, despite comments made by the Prime Minister. Christopher Luxon hinted the number of days of sick leave could be reduced from 10 to 5. However, Workplace Relations and Safety Minister Brooke van Velden says that's not the case, and the government's been focused on developing prorated sick leave for part-time workers.
We've had a lot of feedback, and this is why Cabinet has agreed to progress.
This is where she says what she always says when they're taking things off workers. Well, I've spoken to lots of workers and they agree that they'd like less sick pay.
with this change from business owners who suggest that it's not actually fair, and from employees too, who suggest that it's not fair, that somebody who's working far fewer hours than they might work on a full-time job is also entitled to the exact same sick leave entitlement.
Van Velden says more will be revealed about the proposed changes in the coming months.
There you go. So, Jan, I saw the story this morning, and I think I tweeted something like, "Colour me surprised, they're going to get rid of half your sick pay." Obviously, it's going to impact vulnerable and poor people more, because if you've got plenty of cash and you can take a day off unpaid sick, you don't really care. It's going to impact women more. I think TV3 picked up on that story, and they covered off on it because more women are part-time workers. And I don't know, is this the definition of flooding the zone so no one knows what's going on so they can pass whatever they want? Can you please explain this to me before my brain explodes?
Well, it's either that or we've got a Prime Minister that's completely not over any of the portfolios whatsoever, which I tend to believe is true as well. And so when the question came up, he had no idea and he blustered his way through it and made a complete idiot of himself. So that's probably more likely. Or, as you say, flooding the zone could be part of it as well, and seeing what the feedback's going to be. But it's very, 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 very rare that you would have a minister come out just a couple of hours later and have to correct what the Prime Minister has said. I mean, I've worked under two Prime Ministers in their executive, and that just wouldn't happen. That they are completely, as Prime Minister, they are completely over those things. So it's just completely unbelievable that any other Prime Minister would be that bad, but this particular one probably very believable.
So, but does that mean, I actually don't want to use, ad hominems, but what I hear you saying is he's either lying or he's an idiot. And I mean, so either way, he either doesn't know what's going on and he's making up shit on the fly, he's only half over it and he's heard something around the cabinet table but he wasn't really paying attention, or he does think that, and now the other way is Brooke van Velden's covering for him. Could that be the case as well? Like, that's actually something he wants and they are looking at, and they're actually realising after he said it out loud, oops, maybe we should pull back on this a bit. And the only way we can do it is to basically say, no, he was wrong.
Yeah, there's some sort of funny divide that's going on there that you'd have to say that it could be one of about three things, because obviously she signalled last year about going after the part-time sick leave, which I just, it's unbelievable. And I'm pleased you talked about the impacts on women, because here's a minister that once again is going after women in just a few short weeks after she absolutely crucified pay equity. But there's that. But the Prime Minister then saying that we were looking to have sick leave today, I think he got it wrong. I think he just, he obviously a bit of a setup question, and maybe he was supposed to say about sick leave. He's absolutely not over it at all. He should be, because he should know what is coming up in those interviews, but he obviously thought he was over it and not over it, and just made a real idiot of himself at that particular point in time. So I think that's probably the most likely scenario of what's happened here.
So you're leaning with incompetence?
I'm leaning with incompetence in this particular case. Having said that, nothing surprises me. Every day I wake up and think, how are they going to hit workers today? And sick leave is something, we've got to protect our sick leave, and that's why we brought 10 days in the first place. And then I just loved you, Chewy, when he said, Mike says, COVID's over, and you just cracked up laughing. And I'm like, I could not believe that when I saw that myself, that they are saying COVID's over. So therefore, let's let it run in the community. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just on screen now, Jan, I've got the Dunedin results, that big spike in wastewater. Seen here, Canterbury, another big spike. Bay of Plenty, another big spike. It's still here. People still get, we are 2 years out from a massive global pandemic, and people have gone, I'm glad we don't have to learn anything.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. It's someone coming to work sick because they have to.
That's the thing, Joey. Look,
Lowers
that's
the
the thing.
productivity for everyone.
This is why you know that these guys aren't even neoliberals. You know, people talk about them being neoliberals. They're not even good business people. Everything they do is half-assed, because I know the stats, you know the stats. Anyone that wants to know the stats knows the stats. And if a sick person comes to work, it knocks off a huge amount of productivity through the whole team for the next week to month. So actually, a sick person coming to school to work on his or her 6th day off because they have to, you are actually going to be worse off than letting that person have another couple of days off to get right. And listening to Ruth Richardson on Q&A, you kind of go, oh, you guys are just assholes. I see this now. You'll just pick and choose the quote unquote facts and figures that you want, that only look at the numbers, but you won't actually look at the effect. It's what you always say, Chewy. It's the what is it? The cost of everything and the value of nothing. They don't know the value of the worker, just the cost of that worker being off for one day.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure that they have the anecdotes locked and loaded and ready to go. I spoke to a guy the other day that just said his workers would know that they've got 10 days and they always use them up. The stats disagree with that. That the average
don't want the stats.
use of... No, you don't want to talk about stats. You want to talk about vibes.
Yeah.
But stats are very unkind to everything that this government wants to do. But the vibes are always in their favour. And I want to say that the actual stats for the last couple of years, so that we've had 10 days of sick leave, the average use of the sick days has only gone up by 1 day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. And yet we're keeping people well longer, being able to keep them in work, because we are giving people that ability to be able to take the time when they need the time. And that's just critical. The other part, there's no evidence in any of their announcements whatsoever. On that 3 News, when Samantha Hayes was interviewing the minister this evening, and she said, about the women, and this is going to impact on women more because, Ministry for Women have said that more women are in precarious job situations. And Brooke just came straight back going really affronted by it and saying, oh, yes. And then I've heard also about that they care more for kids, and I'm really offended by that. Because, why would you say women do that? Well, every piece of evidence shows that we've got, and every piece of research shows in this country that we have a gender care gap. But let's not use evidence. Let's not use evidence at all. Let's just go on that whole vibe of it, because it's appealing to that big end of town, that rich end of town, and that's what they want to do. We want to protect people's sick leave, and that's what we will do.
Did Brooke van Velden actually say she was? I didn't see the whole clip. I saw the start of it. Did she say that she was offended in that?
Yeah, she basically she got very uptight. I don't know. She probably didn't use the word offended, but she got very uptight and very. Why would you say that in a partnership? And she got really very uptight.
It's just so strange that she would clutch Pearl, because if we know anything about Brooke van Velden, it's
Mr. Speaker, I'm a strong woman and I can speak for myself.
So a strong woman who can speak for herself. You just think that seems. But hey, look, the other thing that's actually probably quite important to talk about, Jan, is the pro rata, or ratering as they're both calling it, of sick leave. Now, explain. I'm a moron, like we all know that. Thanks. But what I'm kind of hearing is, if you work 1 day a week, then you'll get 20% of the sick day. So you'd get 2 sick days. In other words, because that's how illnesses work. Apparently, illnesses only hit part-time people part-time. That's what I understand.
Well, you only get 20% of a cold, as one of my colleagues said to me tonight. Yeah. So, that sounds all right, doesn't it? That's the vibe of the thing. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You're talking about people too that might be working, let's say they're working school hours and they're working 5 hours a day. Again, women, because they have to look after their kids. Let's halve their sick leave, because they don't need it, do they? But you take 1 day, that's 1 day of 5 hours. Why would you cut their sick leave? It's just unbelievable. They honestly, they have no evidence that backs up their decisions whatsoever.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but sick leave allocations are already prorated. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, like, as I say, 5 hours, if you worked 5 hours a day, that's 1 day, right? So you're not working a full time, you're working that 5 hours as your 1 day.
It's the shift, 5 shifts.
Yeah.
So does it sound to you as it sounds to me like both Luxon and Brooke van Velden don't realise that that's already the case?
Yeah.
That they're already prorated. That they think it's something else.
You only have to look at that interview this morning when he's talking with Hosking, when he's talking about, Luxon's talking about, we've already done some stuff in the employment relations. He's got no idea. He has absolutely no idea. So he has no idea about employment relations. He's making it up.
So just for complete clarity, for any other morons like me out there, my 18-year-old works 4-hour shifts at Pack and Save? No.
Yeah.
What's that horrible place, Drew, that all the kids go and buy crappy plastic stuff from? That left in Eden, but it's come back. Kmart, that's the one.
Oh, Kmart,
yeah.
right.
So students do 4-hour shifts there. So her sick days are allotments of 4 hours because those are the shifts that she works. Yeah. She doesn't therefore get to go, can I have half a sick day? Because I only work 4 hours and a work day's 8 hours. So it's the shifts that they work.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so where are we? Because it feels like they're gaslighting. Mind you, you've basically said he's incompetent, and that could be the answer. So do we just accept that they aren't looking at this now? Because even that 3 News piece, which I didn't watch all of, the commentary at the start was they are in talks about halving the 10 sick days. Yeah, that's how they started their story.
While I say that I believe that it was an incompetent interview today, it wouldn't surprise me. So it's like, don't take your eye away from it. It's really important to keep focus. It wouldn't surprise me. No one knew that pay equity cuts were coming. We just cannot take our eyes away from these things. And we cannot trust a word that comes out of their mouths. They have got a true assault on workers. There have been, I worked it out the other day. I was doing a presentation to some people around this, but there's been 15 major initiatives that have been direct hits at workers in the last 18 months. There are another 5 that are underway at the moment. Do not believe a word that comes out of their mouth, and don't take your eye off what they're doing.
There you go. Hey, Jan, it's been lovely talking to you. Anything else to wrap up, Chewy?
I got one question. When's the general strike?
Well, I think there are some people that are getting angrier and angrier, and I can see that people want to take their anger out in a way, and in some way, but it has to be legal, because a general strike can only happen legally when they're in employment negotiations. Having said that, there are some pretty big public service employment negotiations that are coming up. So I think the unions will be working very closely with their members over that one.
Cool. Hey, Jan, thanks for jumping in. We appreciate you bringing some light to our shady day, if that's the case. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you jumping in and having a chat.
Cool.
Workplace spokesperson for Labour, that is Jan Tinetti. Chewy, do we need this yet? Is this needed yet, or are we okay? Are we okay?
I think I'm immediately calmed.
We could do something else that might make you feel a bit better. What about this one? Oh, you've stolen my screen off me. There we go. I've got it back. So let's have a look.
My God.
So
how good was this?
This is
Trump's parade, right?
Yeah, this is not.
That's a lot of people.
Because this is lots of people. This is not Trump's parade.
Yeah. That's how you tell the difference.
This is a tweet that Gavin Newsom put out today. It's just 15 seconds, and he just wanted to highlight the differences between the No King protests and Trump's march parade, birthday present. San Diego, Philadelphia, Madison, Wisconsin, Dallas, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, San Francisco. Now, the only thing I think that Gavin Newsom got wrong is he's only just done like 2,100 locations, Chewy. 2,100 locations. There are people who were saying 5 million, and then the other estimate that came out was 4 to 6 million Americans. 2% of the population. 2% of the population getting out.
Pat, I have seen the final count.
Oh,
it is
okay.
probably closer to 11 million people went out into the streets.
Oh, well, I watched the clip just before we started the show, but okay. Well, but look, whether it was
Are you taking the
5 or
stats
10
from? Are you taking the stats from the New Zealand police, because they're really good at counting numbers?
It's very good. The other thing that's happening is, and this is from Russia. This is Russia's stab, or someone within Russia, I guess. But I don't think much goes out without Putin. This is Russia's stab at him. Is this the right one? Oh no, this is not. Sorry, this is for Republicans against Trump. There's a bunch of people who are doing the parade Trump thought he was getting and the parade he really got. So there's a parade that he thought he was getting. It's pretty impressive, eh? I mean, weird, but impressive. And any second now, the parade he got.
Oh, this is what triggered me so much when I was watching it, Pat. Oh.
I don't know how much this music's going to be copyrighted and we're going to get them booted off. Here's another one. The parade Trump thought he was getting. We'll turn it down a bit behind us so we can talk over it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I had a lot of thoughts. In my youth, I was in the Air Cadets, and we did a lot of drill and marching.
Yeah.
And there was pretty much a universal criticism if the marching was sloppy, is that you're not marching, you're wombling. And that is wombling. That's my favourite guy! That's my favourite guy.
The guy who's carrying the drone.
Who's carrying a drone.
Not even flying it. He's just carrying the
The
drone.
whole thing. Yeah, well, you got to conserve those batteries. But yes, I reckon that image alone of some guy carrying a drone has increased the chances of China invading Taiwan in the next 5 years by at least 70%.
I reckon that the squeaky wheel, man. The squeaky wheel was like, how quiet does a parade have to be? How quiet does the crowd have to be able to literally hear the squeaky wheels on the squeaky tank going past? Here's another one. Someone just asking who did this. I'll go back a bit. This goes a bit long. We'll show. So there's some of the footage from his.
They reckon to touch over 8,000 people turned up to this.
The bleachers.
That's horrible.
I mean, it's like to be fair, right? I mean, I've also heard they said 250,000 were going to be there, and there was only 100,000. You're saying 8 to 10,000. I guess I don't want to get caught up too much in the numbers. What it is his was a complete failure, and the counter protest, big yawn coming. Marco Rubio's a bit bored. The counter protest was huge. Whatever the actual split was, let's not get caught up in it was 8,000. It was actually technically 93,000. It doesn't matter. It was a empty stadiums, empty bleachers. Trump barely able to stay awake. Empty bleachers there.
Yeah.
Not a brown face to be seen. Notice that?
Fox was really struggling to have any footage that wasn't just like a tight shot on 4 or 5 people. There were no wide shots.
I think that's exactly what one of the ones. Here we go. So that's I don't know if this is Fox or not, but this is the tight shot.
That's right in front of the review stand. That's where you'd want to be.
And then
if you
accidentally
wanted to be there.
They took a wide shot.
Oh, that is rough.
What about this as well? We can go through a bit of this as well. The No Kings anti-Trump protest attracts millions, organisers say. A state of play, more than 5 million people took part in No Kings demonstrations in over 2,100 cities and towns across the country, with additional 300 Kick Out the Clowns rallies being held. Philadelphia saw more than 100,000 attendees, Chicago 75,000. Smaller towns such as Pentland, Michigan, reported 400 in a town of 800 organised. Said half the town turned out. And on and on and on. Chewy, you were going to say.
And some of those locations are in deep red states, like Idaho, as an example. They had big turnouts and that sort of thing. So one of the things I saw bandied around is when you're talking as a percentage of the population, there is a theory, and I've quoted some of this previously, but if you can get about 3 to 4% of your population motivated enough to come out into the streets, that government does not survive the next election.
Well, Chewy, this happened. We've already seen this. When Donald Trump won last time, 2016, there was a huge round of protests, and in the midterms, there was a historically bad midterms for them, where they lost something like 49 seats in the Senate or in the House, and the power changed, and these are bigger, but exponentially bigger than the protests last time. So, we're probably 10 months away, maybe 12 months away from midterms. It's going to be really interesting.
The other interesting tipping point when you're talking about a motivated population out on the streets for protest is when it's 8 to 10%, you are talking about a change in your society. You are talking about something like Arab Spring or some sort of revolution. So that's how thin the margins can be on something like this. As far as Trump's birthday parade went, as someone with an interest in military matters, the comparison with the other nations that do these big military reviews, your North Korea, your China, your Russia, France, all of these other places that do these big parades, they have a dedicated place for it. They're lining up so the equipment looks really impressive, and that there's lots of it, and all of your soldiers have been practicing for ages to look like that they can march. As someone that has been around marching and that sort of thing, I was shocked to see how sloppy and shit these army guys were. And look, there's an argument that the US Army has had for decades about why they don't do big parades and reviews for the public like that, is that they're a force of war fighters. We don't want to train to march around and look pretty. We're there to accomplish the mission, set and destroy our enemy and that sort of thing.
They don't spend months practice marching.
This.
Yeah, they don't spend...
And that has been a valid argument.
Citizen Gold asked a question that I was going to ask, but he's done a super chat, so we should use his. The sloppy marching was malicious compliance. Third try at the super chat. So I don't know if that. But I don't know if they do that. I mean, I think the one thing in America in particular is the whole commander in chief. And I mean, would the army really basically do their version of flipping the bird as they walk past, or are they just sloppy? If they're your two options, I'd lean towards sloppy. But
yeah, it's an interesting choice. It's one that a lot of people have noticed. So I don't know. I wonder if there'll be a confirmation of like, oh, we just did it because of this. The other thing was, and it's directed at one particular person that I saw in that parade. In some of the armored vehicles that came on, there was a Bradley commander who was a black woman, and I just thought as she rolled past the review stand with Trump and Hegseth there. Hegseth especially has been wanting to scrub out anything to do with DEI in the military, and I just wanted to know what thoughts were going through her head. Someone who has trained and is now the commander of a crew in a vehicle, as she rolled past someone that doesn't want her there, doesn't want her to have that role, that doesn't want her to have any sort of prominence, that is just basically saying if you're a woman or you're black in our military, you're there for other reasons.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to a few of the super chats. Ko Tukutuku says, armies show they aren't Trump's dancing monkeys. Arvid says, lucky to get 8,000 views, David Seymour. Peter says they played Fortnite song, LOL.
Yes.
What's that one? Tell me
Fortunate
that. I
Son.
haven't heard this.
Famous song associated with the Vietnam War,
I
but
said
with
Fortnite.
very much anti-war lyrics. You know, some I'm going to misquote it here. You just watch me go. Some of us are born to wave the flag, so the red, white, and blue. Some of us silver spoons, all of this sort of stuff. It's a very anti-war song. So I was shocked when I heard it, and I was like, "This is the worst place to play this song," and nobody got the irony.
Yeah, all
Like
right.
nobody got there.
Robbie says, late fee, bring back XP. I haven't changed anything. If it's gone somewhere, someone's worked out how to get rid of it. Arvid says, late fee. Back to Brooke van Velden as well. Mark says there was a Brooke van Velden quote in that Pod Save the World interview. Is it Pod Save the World, is it? Okay. She thought Labor put too much value on human life during the pandemic, for fuck's sake. Yeah, we're going to play some of that in a sec. Mystery Stranger says, late fee and a reminder that you either submit on the RSB or submit to David Seymour. Oh, that's a good way of saying it. That was like I was listening to a debater today say, what's the difference between a enthusiastic Trump voter and a reluctant Trump voter? And the person they were debating was, I don't know. And he went, nothing. Oh,
Yep.
So that's quite good as well. I like that, Mystery Stranger. Back to your point, though, Chewy. Gareth says, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket would not approve of that marching. It's such a good movie. Peter says, I didn't see this in National's 2023 manifesto. That's talking back to that conversation with Jan as well. There's a couple of there from Mr. Alex. Okay, we'll do them now, Mr. Alex, because Mr. Alex always has sort of questions that are just from left field for the conversations we're having. I just want to say Louise Upston needs to be scrutinised on mandatory reviews of 52 weeks in the 2-year certification period for vulnerable or disabled people on supported living payment. I saw as well in the news tonight that the government's making some changes to the way disabled people get public transport. And actually, one of the lads here in Dunedin was there. There's a guy called, is it Big John's Travel or something? Big John's.
Oh, yep.
And the thing is, they have these cards to be able to swipe and get subsidised. But this government's saying basically now the new system is if you don't have the card on you, then you've got to pay full price. And they can kind of fudge the system a bit at the moment. Like the guy can do a manual interaction for what their card would be if they forget it. And a disabled person forget their card. So, you know, it's they're making life more difficult because those disabled people, Chewy, they've just had it too good for too damn long.
Oh.
So this government should bring them down a peg or two. That's what I think.
They will absolutely be taking the angle that it's a rort on the system, that the government shouldn't be paying for people that are using it, and they shouldn't be using it. And as we've discovered, there is more focus and more punitive actions directed at people that might possibly get a skerrick more money out of benefits and that sort of thing than is ever done as Jan said, at the top end of town. We're focusing on the wrong part and we're leaving money on the table because of it.
There's another one from Alex. Thank you for your super chat, Alex. Another thing Louise Upston needs to front up is that people on supported living payment who need subsidies for laptops, phones or tablets are reporting difficulties getting subsidies through the local NASC. Yeah, well, I mean, we're about to, well, not right now, we're going to do Jacinda first, but, you know, Ruth Richardson will just show you the foundation of all their vicious cuts and, you know, I couldn't believe how many times Ruth Richardson used the phrase, we took the moral stance. I was like, holy crap, we are in the upside down if you think this is the moral stance. Let's have a look at something that will, I actually put this up on Twitter. I wonder if I had much takers. I put up on Twitter about this next story, something like, and we finally remember how amazing it was to have Jacinda as our Prime Minister. Just thinking, oh, I wonder how many will react to that. It's a bit, I'm trolling a little bit. And I don't think I got that many. I thought I'd hopefully get more. But no, didn't. No real biters. No, all right. Oh, well, I'll just have to go back into my little cave. Jacinda was on, it's Pod Save the World, sorry, whoever said that in the chat, you were right, not Pod Save America. And we're not going to watch a lot of it. It's an easy watch. It's only 35 minutes if you want to go check it out for yourself. But speaking of what we've just watched, Chewy, she was asked by the podcasters, how is it being sort of an observer in Trump's America, looking at the military on the street? And this is what she had to say.
Incredible. But I do want to ask you one question just to start. Like, you're here in Los Angeles on this tour, like a few miles from here.
Yeah.
The U.S. Marines are deployed. The National Guard is deployed. What is it like? As you've been living in the United States for a brief time now, but as someone who's not American, can you share a perspective of like what this looks like, kind of from the outside in, to see the U.S. military in the streets like this?
It's not
Well,
good.
I've been here, going on 2 years now, and I'm always really aware that I'm an observer, and that's a really privileged position to have, and always have a little bit of caution, commentating on other people's democracy as an observer. But it really does feel like the United States is the epicenter of a globalization of political culture.
Culture wars.
So you are not the only ones who are having this experience of the perfect storm of the disruption to what healthy democracies need, but you are having the experience first in the most extreme ways. When you think from the trajectory of January 6th, then of course through the Trump re-election and the manifestation of his particular style of politics and leadership, to now what we're seeing manifesting in the streets, added with mis and disinformation on top of that. It's a pattern that we are seeing in other places, but you are seeing it first, and you're seeing it in a very extreme way.
So they are the melting pot. America is the melting pot for culture wars, and for not necessarily for producing, which we'll get onto shortly, mis and disinformation, but certainly an incubator for it, Chewy, if we can say that. Then it infects the world often. Say from Russia to America to the world seems to be what's happening. It was just very strange. I didn't hear any buzzwords or kind of middle management enthusiastic slogans in there. I'm not quite sure how to take it, Chewy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, it's it's strange. She's also in a position she just can't jump out and say it's wrong to militarize, to point your army at your citizenry is not a good sign that things are going well.
ICE might turn up on her doorstep and deport her if she does that, bro. Probably best to be a bit careful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look, commentators on that are learning that in real time. There was an Australian journalist in the last couple of days that was deported and was only given her phone back to her when she arrived in Melbourne. She spent 18 hours getting there, 48 hours in detention, and 18 hours coming back. And that was because of an article that she wrote. So I mean, this is the thing, is this is what's happening to foreign journalists.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of questions lately, certainly after that Australian journalist copped a rubber bullet that we had on the show the other day, that, hey, you've got the World Cup and Olympics coming up.
Oh, yeah, sheesh.
Maybe this is something that needs to be considered about whether it is safe to go to the US in this environment.
Yeah, gosh, because there'll be lots of brown athletes, bro. They won't get past.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you'll be like, why does everyone feel so white at the Olympics? It's not. Remember that quote we tried to get for Luxon? It's not all white. It's not all white, Mr. Luxon. It's not all white, Trump. I know you want it to be, but it's not.
I saw a lot of comments, especially in circles that were talking about the No Kings protest and people going to the No Kings. There wasn't a lot of people that were talking about this, but I did notice that there were a few of like, if this is your first time protesting, here are some things you need to consider.
Yeah.
Write your lawyer's phone number or your next of kin's phone number on your body. Do not take your phone or have it in flight mode. Don't take your photos. Don't take photos of other people going with it. Don't say on social media that you're going protesting. Carry a mask. Cover your face. Our country is sliding into fascism, or deeper into fascism, and we don't know where things are going to go. And I think I read that and I went, oh, that's pretty chilling that they're at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get to the next part. The next part actually is There's lots of parts, but the next part we're going to play tonight kind of was reflecting back on COVID in New Zealand. And there was a couple of things mentioned in this conversation that I was like, oh, gosh, had known that. And we talked about this in the weekend. This is talking about the value that citizens, the value that gets put on life. And people have already mentioned in the chat what Brooke van Velden has said about this, which we're going to talk a bit about as well. So this is the talking a bit about the value of life. And this is what makes me kind of go, mate, she was so good. She says a point here where they had to put a value on suicides, right? They had to actually kind of go, let's have a target. And she goes, we knew it was unrealistic, but we wanted to make it 0. Why would you have a tolerance for suicide? And I'm just like, oh my God, just fills your heart just to hear that again. You're like, they know that they're not realistic, but like, why are we going to accept one? We need to sort of mourn and just say, no, not one's okay. So we're going to aim for 0, although we know it's unrealistic. It's so good. It's such good politicking and such good human being-ing.
I wanted to ask about what you as a leader learned during COVID about the value that citizens put on life. The kind of jumping off point for this question was there was an article in the New Yorker that said the following: an opposition politician named Brooke van Velden declared at a medical technology conference that Ardern's administration had put far too much emphasis on saving lives. Quote, when it came to COVID, we completely blew out what the value of life was, she said. I've never seen such a high value on life.
Now, we're not stopping, but I just wanted to, because I tweeted it this week, and I've got it right here. I just want to read that to you again. Now, Brooke van Velden does try and bring some context to it, which we'll get to later, but this is the quote, right? I've got it here. When it came to COVID, we completely blew out what the value of a life was. Completely. I've never seen such a high value on life. Jacinda Ardern's government was about having a high value on life. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I support that. I support that. And just remember, not that I've got, it's the conservative right that always go off at the left for things like, oh, they would abort a 40-week abortion. They have no value to life, yet the right, a representative of the right is the one going, oh, that's too much value, too much value on life. Now, my contention is it's bullshit. And I've got a few receipts to show you as we go through, but let's get to the end of Jacinda answering this question about the citizens, that the citizens put on life, the value that citizens put on life.
Velden declared at a medical technology conference that Ardern's administration had put far too much emphasis on saving lives. Quote, when it came to COVID, we completely blew out what the value of life was, she said. I've never seen such a high value on life. Van Velden became a minister in the new government, they note in this article. That quote is so crazy on its face. But I want to sort of unpack the sentiment a bit and understand like maybe what you learned about what value people put on the lives of others versus their own personal freedom and how that impacted choices you had to make.
Yeah, and this is such an interesting question because in policy making and in government policy, you know, there are some areas where there will be called to put a number or a calculation on human life in that way. And when I think about, for instance, we have a scheme called ACC in New Zealand where, you know, you are compensated for injury or accidents or, you know, in some cases, loss of life. And so there are some areas of government policy that quantify these things. But the idea of doing that, the idea of saying, well, at this particular point, that investment, that trade-off means that, you know, that we'll have this hit to our economy and that cost is too high, that seemed both crude to me, but also wrong. And I think the point that perhaps is being missed in her statement was that she's making a claim that there was a trade-off when actually our view was a strong response to COVID was a strong health response was the best economic response. If we didn't...
Sorry, Joe. I just need to take a bit of a moment and go, out with a bang.
Remember?
Good.
Remember, fam? And then Some of our society's most cretinous made her existence so unpleasant that she left the country.
Now,
We should
you
never
may
let
not
those people away with it.
you may not remember, but when I was a kid, we had this prime minister called Jacinda Ardern. It's nothing like the prime ministers you have now. All those 2 years ago.
What was the COVID response as far as the economy? We should make sure that people don't die.
Yeah.
Because the economy is made of people.
Yeah. 60 seconds to go for this clip.
Respond to the fear that people had. People would self-exclude from the economy anyway.
Right.
And so managing and trying to pursue the strategy we did, which was elimination of COVID, we felt did both. A similar experience I remember when we were working on mental health. It was a big focus for us as a government, and we were called upon to come up with a target for suicide reduction.
Oof.
And I remember really grappling with that, the idea that setting a target and somehow putting on display that you had a tolerance for something where we clearly had a role to play as government in the provision of mental health service. And so in the end, even though I knew it was unrealistic, we said our target is 0. Because why say you have a tolerance? And in many ways, I think we took a similar approach with COVID. If lives could be saved, we should be saving them.
Oh, Chewy. I think we need to play parts of this every night. If lives could be saved, we should be saving them. Flip that over into any policy now. You know, if help could be given, we should be given it. If a house is there to be used, we should be letting vulnerable people use it. It's just, fuck me, it's a different world we live in today. And I want to say this again, and I know there's probably no crunchies watching right now, but they might see this clip. You guys chase this person out of the country. This person could still be Prime Minister right now. You guys in your wackadoo stories and Russian misinformation got sucked into a hole of chasing that empathy and that care out of this country and out of her job when we could still have that compassion and care. And the thing is, what she just said is what we just said. The compassion for people and their health needs was also the best response for the economy. It's exactly what we just talked about with Jan Tinetti. If someone comes into work sick because this government has cut the sick days in half and they make the other 4 people in the office sick, it's actually worse for the economy. A good health outcome is actually better for the economy as well. But no, we'll chase her out. We'll sit on their front lawn. We'll call her all the worst names in the world. She'll be potentially, and this has been reported, that she might be the first Prime Minister to need security the rest of her life. And that's the response we could have had to tariffs. Ethical, moral, compassionate, good for the economy. It's so infuriating.
The person that said that the value of life had been blown out, like, she's not putting a number on it, but that one comment just shows, what value do you put on someone's nan? Yeah. What value do you put on your brother or sister? What value do you put on the person that you like? It's just such a cold metric. And that minister, the person that thought that was okay to verbalize to other people in a setting where it was obviously recorded and noted down, is now our workplace minister
for
minister
safety,
for workplace relationship and safety.
The person who thought there was too much value on human life is now responsible for the safety of human lives in the workplace. Think about that for a second. Chewy, I want to just also explain, I want to bring some receipts as well, if you'll let me do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give her dues. This is what Brooke van Velden said when she got challenged about that comment, high value on human life comment. This is what she said. she said, asked about the comments, she said, I said last year there were a range of different ways you could value life based on which government agency you're talking to. For example, ACC put values on your life. The Transport Authority also has a value on your life. When it came to COVID, the government made active decisions on how much money they would spend to save each life from COVID. Now this is really important, right? Because I've got something to show you. She's saying, well, we do this, government does this all the time, puts a value to life all the time. So what I said last year was just another example of it's got nothing to do with me thinking that lives weren't, this happens all the time, right? Government agencies do this all the time and they put a value on life. She goes on to say, the article goes on to, it is okay for us to have made that trade-off. As a government, these are the questions we have to make every single day with scarce resources. These are very adult conversations, and I understand they're discomforting to people. So, be really clear. What she's saying is, yes, there are conversations where we have to put a value on life, and I was just saying in that instance, they put a high value on it. The reason I'm calling bullshit on that is 10 days ago, she was asked to put a value on life. And she was offended by the question. If this is just something that happens in government and it's discomforting, it's not comfortable, then why 10 days ago, when this person was asked for it, she took offence?
But the cost isn't the individual road cones, right? So obviously you're still going to need temporary traffic management when you've got a big work site in the middle of a road somewhere. So you're still going to have the lights, or you're still going to have a stop-go sign, that kind of thing. That's where the cost is. It's not on the bit of plastic.
Oh, no, I think you'll find it is as well.
So you don't have evidence at the moment that reducing road cones will save lives. It's a theory at the moment, but you are focused on productivity. NZTA puts the statistical value of a human life at $12.5 million. So how many road cones would have to be removed to justify even one additional death?
Look, Jack, I'm not getting into numbers like that. I think that's a very dangerous game to get into. But what we do know...
Sorry, Minister, isn't that your job?
No, what we do know is that...
That's what you're going to show. Apparently, to Jack Tame, that's a dangerous conversation to get into. But when she makes a public comment about the value of life in COVID, she tries to dig her way out of that by saying, well, government has to do this all the time. I was just saying, no, princess. I'm very, very sorry. You don't get to cover your own ass back then, and then when you get challenged to put a value on life in the work you're doing now, you kind of go, oh, no, we don't do that. You don't have it both ways, so I'm calling bullshit. My honest held belief is she thinks we put too much value on human life during COVID. That's the logical conclusion I draw, Chewy. Sorry, I'm just feeling myself getting a bit... Are
you not calm? Do you need to be calmed?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's almost jarring seeing Jacinda now, because it's been a very long, like, how long have we had this government now?
20
14
months.
years? Oh, that's much shorter than what it feels like. But, like, we've forgotten, like, like, I mean, I get it. People want to put it behind them and that sort of thing. But in doing that, we have forgotten all of those lessons. Like, the things that I would hope that people would have retained onto, you know, if you're sick, wear a mask. If you're sick, don't go to work until you're not sick.
Yeah.
Don't try and push through it. You know, and like the workplaces, some are better than others, but some workplaces have just fallen back into the old routine of like, well, you don't want to let your colleagues down. I tell you what, you come to work and you make me sick, you have let me down. I will tough out a short-handed day quite happily instead of being fucking miserable for the next 5. Like, it's again, it's like, what do you care? Where is the value? Like, don't just look at how much sick days cost. Or if you are going to look at them, look at how many are actually used.
Yeah.
You know? It is almost a mental health thing to know that if you go through 5 sick days, which, let's be honest, if you've got a bad flu or someone in your house needs to be looked after, 5 days is a pretty solid whack. But to know that you've got 10 if you really get sick,
Yeah.
and that you can actually recover properly and then come back to work. Like, how many people get sick once a year? From the looks of it, like, people aren't taking the piss out of this. So it looks like these guys are once again looking for a solution for a problem that does not exist.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very fair. Right, we've got one more clip with Jacinda, but first of all, Mark just wants us to know that apparently Pat compensates for Chewy's calm tonight. So I don't know what that means, but there you go. All right, this is actually really interesting because it is going back to the COVID conversation, but we talk about, those people who are still stuck in that rabbit hole. There was some information delivered in this podcast that I had never heard, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense, was how many people were dragged into that rabbit hole in New Zealand. Have a listen to the conversation between these guys about how New Zealand was one of the worst places in the world for Russian disinformation. I had never heard this before.
And so one thing that impacted views on the pandemic and COVID everywhere was there was this global deluge of Russian disinformation during COVID, including in New Zealand.
Yes.
This New Yorker story reported that during the final month of the COVID lockdown in Auckland, consumption of Russian disinformation was 30% higher in New Zealand than in the United States.
Yes.
What do you think the impact of that
It's so
disinformation
interesting.
was?
And why New Zealand?
Yeah.
What do you think the impact of that is? How about a camp out in Wellington on the front lawn of Parliament? In fact, I think she does actually mention the Canadian truckers because that's where it sort of all started here.
United States.
Yes.
What do you think the impact of that
It's so interesting.
was?
And why New Zealand?
Yeah, I have asked that question and I cannot answer it. I don't know why, but I do know that we in New Zealand, interestingly, the claim is that also possibly the Solomon Islands as well were amongst the highest consumers of Russian disinformation at this particular time in early 2022. And the result of that was 6 days after, well, one of the results we see in that time period is 6 days after the convoy in Canada causing the blockade, we had the same in New Zealand. And I think this comes to this wider issue. And this is not to say that government shouldn't take responsibility for whatever contribution may be the role they're playing for any kind of disquiet in their own country. But at the same time, we are interconnected. And back to this issue of the globalization of political culture and the issues, the things that are challenging our, Western liberal democracies, this idea of disinformation, we talk about it almost as if it's just singly this issue of freedom of speech. But when foreign interference is involved, it is much, much more than that. And most countries and most people, I would have thought, would hate the idea of their people being manipulated. And yet that is exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
It does bring more context. Like we said the other day, Chewy, for some people, this is still their biggest thing. Their Facebook posts, they listen to reality check radio, the conversations they have with friends. They use Signal because they don't want the government to track them because it all started with microchips being put in the vaccines. Like, these people are still out there. They're still doing it. And when you hear Jacinda explain that, it's like the freedom of speech versus basically getting pulled into a cult. It does both engender an amount more compassion for these people, but also, for me at least, an amount more of fury at all of this, what has happened and what it's cooked. So even if I'm trying to be really generous and I'm saying those people I talked about before who quote unquote chased Jacinda off, and it's not everybody, some of them, most of them, if not all of them, you could probably start their journey to where they ended up screaming at her in a Coromandel store over a Christmas holiday, calling her a horse-faced C word that ruined your life, with probably Russian disinformation. That was probably the first step one to get to that point. So fury at that panel, but there's still empathy in me for the people who fell down that hole. But I don't know, can we drag them out? You can't leave them there forever. I can't be empathetic forever of those people at the bottom. Shall we?
Yeah. No, I really struggle with that. And look, there's people who are going, well, how do you know it was Russian disinformation? All of this sort of stuff. People that look at this sort of stuff look at patterns, basically the times people posts, and you can hide your IP and where you are in the world and that sort of thing. But for people that look at disinformation, like we've had Byron on the show talking about, his book, he was certainly someone that looked at that sort of stuff. And there's a couple of experts in New Zealand that have done big studies and papers and books and have advised the government on where these sources of disinformation come from. And they just pretend to be New Zealanders. And they might have 15, 20 different accounts that they jump between. And one person trying to hide their identity can do an enormous amount of damage. And they know where the chinks in our society are. They know that most countries have a problem with race somewhere. So let's latch on to that. There's always going to be a part of your online society that is unhappy with how society is. So you just tie what you're talking about to that.
Yeah.
And it was dire. And I've often wondered, and I'd love to ask Jacinda, if ever there was a conversation about locking down the internet. Now, I think personally people would go absolutely batshit insane if there was, say, a censorship of the internet at that point. But I mean, what we got as an alternative was people went fucking crazy and are still crazy because of the lines of communication that were opened up because of COVID and people existing online and just not being armed for it. What would you have done, Pat, if they cut off the internet? And they're like, just in New Zealand, think nothing from overseas. Would you have coped?
This theoretical, never going to happen conversation, yeah, of course, I would have coped. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do any podcasting, but, I would have watched a lot of telly. And I would have spent time with the dog at the park.
I'm just talking about the outside access. Like, I mean, maybe they let Netflix through and that's it. I was like, I don't know New Zealand. I don't know what's happened to the internet. We'll look into it after COVID's sorted.
I just wonder, I look back on it now and I sometimes, what are they about history? History written is written by the winners. I still don't know who won that. Like, I don't know who won. Was it won by the good guys who saved 20,000 lives, or was it won by the bad guys who ended up, being victims of all the dis and misinformation? So in 50 years from now, who's writing the history? Is it going to be a history of, and this government did really well and this prime minister was treated really poorly because the winners have written the history? Or is it going to be a history of, Marie Antoinette and let them eat cake and what we had to do to that government? Like, what's it going to be?
I think it's already been written. And I think what we've seen is like, Jacinda's government was thrown out by a very divided country. And we know it wasn't very divided. We know that like 80, 90% of people thought that the majority of the COVID response was fine. And then people just naturally got a bit sick of it. And the guys stuck in Auckland, they got the shit end of the stick and they did the hard work for the rest of the country. And there were questions about whether that was the right thing to do at the time. But I think the narrative that Jacinda was a very polarizing person, she was a very polarizing person for a small segment of our population.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's how she'll get reported now. So I think that is history being written, and I don't think that she will ever escape that. And that sucks. That makes me fucking angry.
I mean, she seems to be doing well, looks calm and relaxed and chilled and, living her best life. So go for her. All right, we're going to get to the Sith Lord in a second, or the Sith Lord's wife. Chris says many a MAGA supporter have been using "Killing in the Name of" as a celebration song. So
It's a
fortunate
shame when
son
Rage Against the Machine went woke.
kind of tracks. Stormy Daniels saw Trump's parade and said, "Wow, that's a crowd almost as disappointing as the first time he dropped his pants. At least the parade didn't finish in 90 seconds." I mean, like, it's a good piss take. I don't really want to know about Donald Trump's dick size. Arvid's, and apparently it looks like a mushroom. Did you hear that as well last time?
No.
Head like a mushroom. Arvid says we put too high a value on the coalition government. Well, we don't. Ethical, moral, compassionate are not words in the rights lexicon unless it is personal to them, says the Danger of Mouse, and thank you for your super chat. Yeah, well, it's probably a segue. I don't know if it's a good segue, but it is indeed a segue into our last conversation for today. We're going to have a look at the Sith Lord's conversation on Q&A this weekend. There is so much we could do, but I think I'm going to drop it to maybe 3 main clips. The first clip, actually, these people are, these people are supposedly smart, yeah? Like, I mean, I guess you could never kind of challenge the intelligence of it, but when they say such stupid things or they give it arguments with such big holes in them, it does infuriate me. Ruth Richardson is talking about rates and how rates should be lined up with inflation. And I kind of agree with her, but she's missing such a huge part of the conversation. Let's have a listen.
Voice. We're noisy. We make the headlines and we seek the public policy to follow. So
she's talking about who is the Taxpayers Union to start off with.
Take the Three Waters campaign. Very hard to get up a major campaign about pipes and water, but we did.
Because you were bullshitting. That's why it was hard.
Yeah, because you made it about racism.
And in fact, that was one of the reasons why the previous government fell. So that's a significant, if you like, badge of honour for the Taxpayer Union. We have new fights. And the fights are in both central and local government. For local government, cap rates now. I mean, something like a 42% increase over 3 years is just outrageous when you're trying to control inflation.
I mean, many people would say that without Three Waters, rates have inevitably had to rise because those local government authorities haven't invested in
Sorry,
that
Jack,
is
that's
not cause and
inconvenient to
effect
me.
at all. Local government is completely out of control. We should be like Australia. You cap the rates at the rate of inflation. Anything more, you must seek the mandate of the public. It's a
I don't mind this idea, Chewy, but here's what she's missing. I put a call to Craig Rennie tonight, and he was in a meeting, so he couldn't help me. So maybe I'll ask him tomorrow. I'm okay with that concept, yeah, of tying it into inflation. But what you have to do today is cover all the rates of inflation for the last 40 years that it didn't keep up with. So yeah, you got to still get it back to a zero-sum balance today, and then you can cap it. We always used to talk about GORE. What was it? 30 billion or something? 30 million, 300 million, I think. And that's because the infrastructure hasn't been kept up with for the past 50 years. So to go, cap it now. Okay, so you've got an infrastructure that won't work. Therefore, people are paying the rate of inflation. That's not going to fix the problem, and it's going to get worse, and eventually it will fall over. So these people that are putting out these ideas like cap it now, stick it to the rate of inflation, I will agree with you on one stipulation. You bring it back to a some zero total balance yet. You go back over, and this is what I was going to ask Craig, you go back over the past 50 years, see how much has been paid in rates, and has it kept up with inflation? And if it hasn't, you have to have a couple of catch-up years, and then you can cap things now, Chewy.
Yeah. Look, folks, you can see why we're in this position if you just jump on your local Facebook group, look for people talking about the local elections or a local ratepayers group, and they will all be saying the same thing. They don't want rates to increase. And all of your local candidates, the ones that are saying that they're campaigning on no rates increases, they are insane. They are the ones that put us in this position. Yes, lots of councils are absolutely fucked because the only way that they've got to raise funds to do what they do is through rates. And every time they go out to campaign for votes, there's people going, well, you don't want to pay more rates, do you? And nobody does. Funny that. You can have one person stand up and go, we've had decades of underinvestment. We were hoping that Three Waters was going to come and bail us out because that's what central government was looking at. But the Taxpayers Union came in and told you that Maori were coming to take all of the water. And they spoke to the rurals who didn't understand that it didn't affect them at all. And they made it about racism. So now we have to find money to replace the pipes that we've been putting off for 20, 30 years. Most councils in the country are in exactly the same place because water and pipes aren't sexy. And you will see the same old blue rinse, grey-haired fucking people that go, councils just need to learn how to get their spending under control and they should stop having nice things and playgrounds for kids and they should just concentrate on the rubbish. And this is where we got. That's where it is. And it is groups that are often some ideological la-la land, like the fucking Taxpayers Union, which is not a union, have thrown not just a spanner in the works, but the whole fucking toolbox into the machinery of both local and national level politics. They have distilled everything down to, well, you don't want to pay more tax, do you? Without explaining what tax fucking does. This mystery that all of this money just disappears into inefficiency. Because they know that every organisation has some inefficiency. Maybe we can just convince people that the entire government is inefficient. It's just batshit insane. And I urge you, local elections are coming up. Go to those ratepayer group meetings. Go to those debates and shout down anyone that is campaigning on the fact that they can hold back rates increases. Not a single one of them can because they're part of a council and they all get in and then they find out going, oh, fuck, I can't do anything about this at all. Rates are going up. They can't stop it.
And remember, when the Christchurch earthquake happened, it was a national emergency, a national disaster. And the whole country paid for it. We all got behind it because it was a national disaster. I would propose that the pipes carrying the water that we're supposed to be able to drink safely in some parts of the country are also a natural disaster. Yet when a government comes out and goes, hey, we've got a way to fix this in your area, people vote against their own self-interest because bloody Maoris and nothing else. And now those councils have to go like Gore, oh, you know how you voters all turned down Three Waters? Basically, you voted it out because you didn't want it. Well, yeah, now your rates are tripling or whatever it's going to be. I think we worked it out once, too, and it was something like $5,000 per ratepayer for the next 10 years on top of what they're already paying to get out of the hole. It was some unbelievable, untenable number to catch up to the money that Gore needed. And it's all because you guys decided not to go with the Three Waters option. You guys decided to kick out the last government and because these guys were better. And guess what? They're not. They're not better. It feels a bit like Chewy. I heard an interview over the weekend with Latinos for Trump, and guess what's happening to all the Latinos for Trump voters?
Lots of faces getting eaten.
They're all regretting their vote because a bunch of the people from Latinos for Trump and their family members are being picked up by ICE and deported. When someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Ruth Richardson is going to have a bit of a chat with us now about who National are. We told you before the election, believe them the first time. Chewie, you want to say something before the next clip?
Yeah, look, I just want to say when she saw, like, I'm glad that she took the mask off and fully told us that the anti-Three Waters campaign was because they can't make pipes sexy, so they made it about racism.
Yeah.
Stop Three Waters, stop co-governance, groundswell, they are all Taxpayer Union AstroTurf groups. None of them were organic. The fact that the rural sector jumped on the Stop Three Waters thing despite not being on town water supply
didn't affect them at all.
Is just mental. It just, like, they're putting signs on their fucking farms that go, I'm an idiot and I don't know how shit works. Like, it was amazing that nobody knew how to push back against that. Labor didn't, and they paid the price for it.
All right. I'm not quite sure what's happening in this freeze frame. I think she is officially a ventriloquist dummy right now. I think someone is actually controlling it, because that's what it looks like to me. Ruth Richardson gets into a really interesting conversation where she starts to absolutely sing the virtues and all the successes of the mother of all budgets. And Jack Tame goes, yeah, but what about the poverty?
Oh.
And then there was a pause. And then the conversation continues for a few minutes.
Back in their box, as they should be.
What about poverty?
Well, the real poverty was New Zealand's if we had done nothing. If we had done nothing, then New Zealand would have most certainly faced the crisis that the Labor government did in the mid-80s. And in a crisis, the people who are hurt most are the poorest people, people on the bottom.
So you decided to get in there first.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what Jack's about
I
to
can't
do.
let them get hurt. I'm going to hurt them.
Well done, comrade. We agree. It's the vulnerable who you're going to hurt the most. Agreed.
Oh, the poverty was of politics. The poverty was lack of political courage to deal with these issues.
So there's the bumper stickers and shit that I was talking about before. The poverty was of politics. What are you talking about, you fucking moron? You puppets-headed woman. What are you on? Is this dementia? Jesus.
So unemployment benefits were cut by 24%. I think the cuts to low-income households were greater in dollar terms than the savings from the top 20% of households. And have a look at this. This is a graphic we put together with the after-housing costs measure. That's a poverty measure. That measures
pause that, Pat.
Yeah, just, I mean,
there we go.
Explain it to us, but yeah. Can you notice a bit of an upswing there in the I paused it. Hang on a second.
The housing.
A bit of an upswing there, just about there, around 1991, and children going into poverty. I wonder because the real poverty was the poverty of politics, Stewie. Don't look at this. The real poverty was the poverty of politics.
Oh, the real poverty was the friends we made along the way. This is what I talk about this is what I'm thinking about when I talk about the psychic damage, the scars that this woman left on this country. We have never been able to get this back in the box. She unleashed it. I remember, I would have been 11, 12, somewhere around there when this budget came out. And I remember how it felt when people lost their benefits, when people were losing their jobs, it was exactly the same thing. She's right. The late 80s, the stock market crash, the fact that New Zealand was almost bankrupt after losing all of our farming markets and that sort of thing, which led to this dramatic decision to do neoliberalism. There were massive job cuts. Stop me if this sounds familiar. Massive job cuts. Many people going on to benefits because they had to, because the economy was fucked. And then Ruth Richardson sweeps in with an idea that the only reason the economy is not firing is because all of these blood-sucking leeches, these welfare queens and all of these people, these takers, they're just always taking, and you should watch your neighbours, and here's a hotline that you can call. They're the problem. She captured all of those people.
But she actually says
We've never got poverty rates back to where they were before she did this.
That point is made by Jack Tame, and also she does actually go down the young people bludging sitting on the couch line as well. Literally, it's bumper stickers from the 1990s.
Measure, that's a poverty measure that measures the number of kids living in low-income households. So this is from Stats New Zealand, and the different lines show the different levels of poverty.
Bloody woke Stats New Zealand, showing them their woke numbers.
The top line is what they used to call inclusive poverty. The pink line down the bottom there, that's the poorest. That's what they called severe poverty. And you can see, though, there's a common trend in all these measures, right?
Yes.
There's a huge spike in 1991 and a spike that never
That
corrects.
was you.
Why is that?
You did that.
Did we all hear that? What he said, though? A spike that never corrects. So that's Jack to her. It's a spike that never corrects, which is exactly what you're saying, Joey.
There's a common trend in all these measures, right? There's a huge spike in 1991 and a spike that never corrects. Why is that?
Look, the spike that New Zealand had to deal with was debt and deficits. And there was no...
And if that's how you dealt with it, what you're saying is we dealt with it off the backs of the poorest and most vulnerable. Again, Chewy, sound familiar? I just want to go back for a sec because look,
super familiar.
You know what's interesting? Even though it never corrects, there was a pretty big downward spike here in about 2006, 2007. Can you just remind me who was in government then with that big downward spike? The one time it did start trending down, was it still Ruth Richardson in power around then?
Oh, that was not, thankfully.
I think it was Auntie Helen. So. It's never corrected other than starting to correct under a Laboured government. And then guess what National did? They took it back up. And since then, again, never corrected.
That never corrects. Why is that?
Look, the spike that New Zealand had to deal with was debt and deficits. And there was no shrinking that responsibility because if I was part of a government that looked the other way, we would have condemned the country to generalised poverty. If you look at the unemployment benefit, this government...
So we had to sacrifice a few. Just think about the conversation we just heard from Jacinda, right? This person is saying, yep, we had to throw some under the bus for the good of us all. Jacinda's just spent that podcast saying, we refuse to throw the most vulnerable under the bus. We couldn't do that. We tried to help everyone. This haunted puppet, is the one who's saying, yep, some had to be burdened, but it was best for the rest of us, especially of those living up the top, going to Canada for ski holidays for our wedding anniversaries.
Government has just taken the same step. It is not morally right for young people to be better off sitting on a couch on a benefit than in the workforce. And yet that was the position that we dealt with.
Hang on. Has there, please sing out in the chat if you know, has there ever been a time where being on the benefit has let you better off than working?
Oh, Chewy, it's interesting you should ask, because here is a young person sitting on a job seeker right now. Remember what she's just said? Better sitting on a couch. The job seeker right now, between 18 and 24, you're going to call it around $300 a week, $300 to $350. That's before tax, by the way. So $268 to $350. That's what a young person on a benefit gets right now. Young person on the minimum wage right now gets $940 a week. So 3 times, 300% increase, 3 times better than sitting on their couch.
This narrative that people on the dole just play PlayStation, just sit on the couch and play PlayStation, is just bullshit. I know that there's kids out there that are going to job interview after job interview after job interview, constantly submitting CVs that get rejected because it just isn't enough work. My workplace had a job advertised, and we had something like 50 applicants on the first couple of days for one part-time position. People are applying. They are not trying not to work. But there becomes a point where you can't do that full-time. Like this narrative that people just aren't trying. Like, if you want them in education or employment, and there isn't employment there, then why are you also not helping them into, say, an apprenticeship program that you shit canned?
Yeah.
Like, it is all stick, no fucking carrot, and a narrative that says that if you are not in work, if you can't find work, if there is not enough work in your area, or the businesses are not in a position to hire more staff, then because you were at home, that is your fault. You did that. And it's not. It's people like Ruth Richardson that go, the easiest way is to punish our way out of this, and we are going to punish the people at the bottom for the situation that they have found themselves in. It is wholeheartedly evil, and both sides have come back to the same point. Like, yes, Labour had a crack at bringing poverty down, and that was through conscious decisions from having Cullen's budget and paying down all of the debt that her government ran up, and they made a dent in it. But they never got it back to where it was. We've always been fighting that because this person, this wizened husk, operated, I assume, by a work experience kid from hell, has decided that this is how New Zealand is now. That we shit on each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's keep listening to Winston Peters' left testicle for a bit longer, and see what she says again. Remember, I put it back a couple so you can hear her say that people sitting on the couch have basically got a better life than people working. Just to remind you again, even though we've just shown you 300% better off working in a minimum wage job.
It is not morally right for young people to be better off sitting on a couch on a benefit than in the workforce, and yet that was the position that we dealt with. So there were moral reasons to do this, not just economic.
PlayStations in 1990.
In 1990, there were about 7% of kids in severe poverty households. Today, there are almost twice as many, 13.6. Well, like I say, that trend has never...
You ready? Guess what she has learnt from Luxon? She's learnt blame Labour from Luxon. Wait and see.
Today, there are almost twice as many, 13.6. Well, like I say, that trend has never corrected. So
who do we thank? Thank you, Jacinda. No, because she was the Minister of Poverty Reduction and did the reverse by not taking those decisions.
The trend never corrected after those 1991 cuts. So I'm worrying about the moral considerations you gave to that, to condemning tens or hundreds of thousands more children to live in severe poverty.
No, the moral consideration was, people who are able to work should, that we only thrive as a society if we put people on their feet and give them the opportunity to contribute.
Put them on their feet, Chewy, by cutting them off at their knees, and that means they're just a bit shorter, but they're now on their what they now call feet because we've cut them off at the knees. Contribute
their talent, not wasting away on a benefit.
Why were twice as many people in poverty then? Twice as many children?
You're looking at the outcome. Yeah. That outcome now, why is the dial not shifted? Because we've not had policies generally, and Jacinda Ardern is responsible for many of them, we've not had policies that have generated wealth for the whole of our society.
Okay. No, okay. Let's agree with her again. So let's start with generating wealth for the most vulnerable and the poor and trickle it up. How about we start with those policies? Are we on board, Ruthie? Should we do that together? We'll generate wealth for the bottom and we'll watch it trickle up. Are you in, Chewy? I'm sure she'd say yes to that.
Yeah, go on. Try it.
I'm going to play one more clip. And this is another quite lovely piece of journalism by Jack Tame. They're talking about, because obviously what she's saying is, if we didn't cut the dole by 24%, it would be immoral of us to not make changes. And so Jack, not quite as bluntly as this, goes, why didn't you just then change the top tax rates? Why didn't you find your money from up there? Mm-hmm. Now, he's not quite as blunt as that, but it's the question he asks. And, you had options. How about rather than getting it off the backs of the vulnerable, again, sound familiar? how about you got it off the backs of those who could afford to scrape a bit off their backs?
Any policies other than to say you have options, right? Any policymaker has options, and some might have said, for example, that greater tax reforms focused on wealthier New Zealanders might have achieved a similar outcome whilst not doubling our rates of poverty.
I'll tell you the most immoral option, which was to do nothing.
Oh.
And
Nobody
we took our
suggested
courage in our
that.
hands and
Nobody's saying do nothing.
So Jack says, how about another option? And her response is, at least we did something. I've written down on one of the other clips as well, and it's not for this one, it's probably for the last one. I do find it quite repugnant that she refuses to, cannot or won't take any accountability for the decisions she made in the 1990s and how it impacted not only people in the 1990s, but set up a trend of impact for the next 30 years, which has just been shown to her thanks to that woke group of economists at Stats NZ, Chewy. And he does ask a fair question. Why didn't you think about finding all this money off the backs of the rich? I've said it in a slightly different way. And she said, well, at least we tried something, Chewy. At least we tried something, even if it meant a cycle of poverty for twice as many kids today than there were back then. At least we tried something, so you can't hate us for that.
I picked the option that meant less awkward conversations for me at the club.
Yeah.
Because if I went after the rich, people would try and talk to me about it. If I went after the poor, then I never had to worry about it ever again.
The only time we had to worry about it was when I had to, my friend who owned 17 houses, their tenants struggled a bit more to pay their rent, but that was okay. We got past that one.
Like, this could have been a really interesting point of conversation for someone that was across economics and wasn't just wholly fucking driven by commands from down below. Like, this could have been, look, at the time, the thinking was that if we did this, this would happen, and then we'd just dealt with more poverty anyway, so we just thought we'd keep New Zealand businesses going. You know, it would have been a more honest answer than, oh, what, you want us to do nothing, Jack? Well, no, that's not what I said. You wanted us to do nothing? It's such a bullshit answer. I can't believe that they gave her a King's birthday honour this year.
Yeah, well, guess who gave it to them, though? Look, this has got 60 seconds to go. So let's get into the stand and double for Dobby, the house elf here, and see what else she's got to say about what we're talking about. Oh, why didn't you tax the rich? Over to you, Dobby.
Moral option, which was to do nothing. And we took our courage in our hands and did the right thing. And the economy prospered.
No, you did a thing. You did a thing. You didn't do the right thing. You did a thing.
You're not putting up the stats that showed the rise in growth, the rise in employment, the halving of the debt, and putting the books back into balance. If you were balanced, you'd be showing those statistics.
Well, let me say this.
Oh, then there's a little bit of act there. If you were balanced, there's accusing the media of being biased. Do we pick up on that, people? A little bit of there comes a little bit of the David Seymour tactic. Undermine.
So hang on. She's saying that because of the decisions that her and her government made, that she brought up increased levels of growth, which is something that Luxon won't fucking shut up about at the moment, that's the focus. It's growth. Growth. And that's what she wanted. She wanted New Zealand businesses to grow, and that would lead to prosperity and less poverty, right? So we looked at the stats of how much poverty has improved. Growth doesn't solve poverty, clearly. So then why is our current government going back to the same poisoned well and saying, trust us, guys, it'll fucking work this time? This is what we're dealing with.
All right, we'll try and get to the end of it with Mitch McConnell's twin sister here, and then see if we can wrap up.
And putting the books back into balance. If you were balanced, you'd be showing those statistics.
Well, let me say this. It's certainly true that you totally changed New Zealand's debt track. I think no one would dispute that, and I think people would agree. Well, yes, but at a significant cost.
No,
I mean, here we are 30 years on, and twice as many people by that severe poverty measure. It's twice as many children are in severe poverty
The
households.
significant cost would have been an unreformed economy. Nobody owes us a living. We're a fantastic little country. We've got to be edgy in our policy and in our politics. We've got to take decisions that many others won't. We've got to put public finances on a sound footing, as I endeavoured to do. Those are the big decisions that have a huge impact on the social and economic prospects of your society.
So let me ask.
Yeah, there you go. The other thing that you have to always think about with big decisions is...
I've got big people doing big jobs and big portfolios.
Yeah, that's the other part of it as well, though. Chewy, you've had a couple of epic rants that people have already been talking about in the chat. I feel like you want to wrap up with Ruth Richardson? I'll just throw you the balls. What else you want to mention? That was a great interview by Jack Tame. It's almost like she's not smart enough to realise the path he just led her down. So, anyway, yours, sir.
The fact that she refers to her actions as a badge of honour.
Badge of honour.
She perked up. That's the best part of the interview. It's a badge of honour that I did this. I would like her to do a speaking tour through every town hall in New Zealand and speak to the people that lived through those events that she describes as a badge of honour. Like, it crushed people. It broke families. It killed people. She hasn't reflected on that at all. Now, I keep on saying the economy is made of people. For her, the economy is made of numbers and graphs, and that's it. If you don't fit into her vision of what the economy is, which is pure, unfettered capitalism, which needs unemployment to work, it keeps wages low. People are afraid of being on that breadline that she cut 24%. And that's just the raw facts of how much she cut it. She did. They don't speak about how hard they made that for people to interact with the machinery of the government to get help.
I mean, imagine just imagine the 24%, so a quarter. So if you're on the minimum wage right now, let's just call it $1,000. It's $940. Imagine someone coming along and going, "Yeah, you're now getting paid $750." That's it, $750. Just taking a quarter out.
Think about the other things that happened around that time. State houses went on market rents. So you get your benefit cut and your rent goes up. You're double fucked. Yeah. Badge of honour. And I think this is the danger when people that don't remember their history vote. And it's concerning to me that we have learned nothing, or we have forgotten everything, because once again, Luxon is talking about growth is the solution. Thank you. Growth is the solution. That'll get us out of the trouble that we're in. It's been proven it does not work. Yeah. There have been things that this country has been through that have left long-term effects on our society. The idea that we should have a welfare state, cradle to the grave. That had massive effects on our demographics and how our society progressed. You had massive projects like Think Big, almost bankrupted the country, but we're still living off the products of those programs. And yet when we get to Ruth Richardson, we should be treating her physical form and her legacy like some countries treat nuclear waste. It should be encased in something that we should write, something that there is absolutely no honour in this place, and we should bury her under a fucking mountain. I cannot believe, the fact that it's this year that they decided to give her a King's Birthday honour. Everybody, every government up until now, National and Labour, none of them have thought in 30 years that now is a good time to give Ruth Richardson an award. But this government thought it was a good time. Why is that? Just unbelievable.
Thank you for joining us tonight, team. Technician says Chewy for mayor. Kaimatara says, can she become a gender-neutral bathroom already? Mr. Arvid says, remember these people think cancer patients should work. Peter Symes says, I have a decent vocabulary. I can't fully articulate my contempt for Ruth Richardson. Words fail me. Punching a poor person is, quote, trying something, end quote. That doesn't make it right. What a horrid, horrid witch.
The analogy I would say there is, she saw people drowning from her boat, and she has life preservers and life jackets, but they're for her friends who might need them. So I can't do nothing, so I'm chucking these drowning people cinder blocks.
Because at least we did something. I mean, we did throw cinder blocks.
I didn't do nothing.
The worst thing would be doing nothing, Chewy. At least we did something. We threw them a cinder block.
Why did you throw them cinder blocks? So I thought they could stand on them.
Yeah.
Keep their heads above water.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Okay, fine.
I hate Ruth Richardson so much.
That doesn't even work.
So much.
Doesn't even work now, does it? You can't even just look at the photo, Chewy. That doesn't work. Hey, team, have a guest coming on tomorrow night. The Rich List was out last week. Some interesting comments made by Mr. Luxon about it. You'll know that there's a group in New Zealand called Sharing Wealth. They're the New Zealand version of Millionaires for Humanity. Malcolm Rand. Malcolm is the co-founder of EcoStore. And he no longer runs it. I believe they sold it, or else maybe he's just not running it anymore. Malcolm will be joining us tomorrow night at 9:00 to talk about the Rich List, probably to talk a bit about sharing wealth, and maybe some differing opinions to what you just heard from that haunted puppet tonight, sharing out one of her two mouths. The other one is for eating small children. It's funny, how there's that whole thing about the people on the left who suck baby blood, and you can almost see the blood still on her lips from actually having done it. But the left, by conservatives, are the evil, immoral ones. Good one. All right, team. I think that's us for tonight. More again tomorrow night, of course. Anything you want to leave with, Chewy?
Yeah. I'm going to leave my last word to someone who experienced Ruth Richardson's budget. This is quite triggering for me. I was a single parent of 4 recovering from domestic violence when benefits were cut. The cuts to DPB was the equivalent of my the cuts to the DPB were the equivalent of my groceries budget, which in itself was determined by what I had left after the mortgage, electricity, rates, insurance, and school requirements. I sat in a locked toilet of my whare and cried when I heard that on the news. And there are people in that position now with this government, because it is happening again.
All right, team. We will catch you tomorrow night for the next edition of Big Hairy News at 9:00.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things
All right, team. That's us. Tomorrow night from 9 for another edition. Malcolm Rands and some more entertaining talk and chat and that kind of stuff. I think, Joey. Is that what we're supposed to do? Something like that. Probably, probably Donald Trump's next failure. That sort of thing as well. Oh, wait! You're going to show us all? I'm going to put you in full screen. Here it comes.
There we go. Look at that.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
the solution to Ruth Richardson.
Yeah, and just remember, right now with the code word Matariki, you can get one of those for half price if you buy a hoodie as well. Hoodies, t-shirt for half price, bhnshop.nz. We'll catch you tomorrow night, team. Be well, be safe. Fuck you, Ruth. Everyone together. 3, 2, 1. Fuck you, Ruth.
Fuck you, Ruth.
Fuck you, Ruth.